Hello and welcome back to Parc Fermé Parlay with Kieran Downey. It is the morning after the night before. The Brazilian Grand Prix was yesterday, and did I think it could get any more chaotic? No. I thought after the qualifying session, all right, the chaos has kind of subsided. The rain has kind of subsided. Yeah, it will begin to rain throughout the session, but it should be a fairly alright session. My God, was I wrong? Did Brazil wake up and choose chaos? She goddamn did. That was one hell of a Grand Prix. Like, one hell of a Grand Prix. I don't remember watching a Grand Prix like that in quite some time. From start to finish, pure, utter chaos. It will go down as probably I think, for me anyway, I would say the most memorable race of the 2024 season. We got Lando winning, we got Charles in Monza, we got Russell's disqualification after an incredible drive in Spa. Like, we've got all these huge things, and none of it compares to what we've seen yesterday. Absolutely none of it. It was unbelievable. It was 4 hours. Like, it just kept going on. It was so long. And I remember being sat there watching, being like, this is never going to end. This is actually never going to end. This is going to go on forever. They're just going to have to stop racing because they've been going for too long and we're losing daylight. Like, I genuinely thought it just would never stop. It was a full 12 hours and 25 minutes after the start of qualifying that we got the final race classification confirmed. They started qualifying at 7:30 in the morning, I think it was Brazil time. And 12 hours and 25 minutes later, we got the final classification through for the race because there was just so much going on. The race itself was 4 hours. We had multiple red flags in the qualifying. There was so many incidents. I think, who was it? I think somebody on Sky Sports, maybe it was Ted, had said that the stewards had actually booked flights home today, like on the Monday, because they knew they were going to be so late with all of the incidents that were most likely coming. And my God, there was a lot. There was a lot. I think the word of the day yesterday should have been noted, because the amount of drivers that were noted by race control for infringements across the board was insane. Now, some of them obviously came with no further action, but quite a few of them did lead to some fines and penalties, so we'll come on and talk about them when we get to the drivers. I want to say a few of my predictions did come true, and the one that I am most impressed by was my Max Verstappen masterclass. Just remember that, because that was an insane drive of his. Absolutely insane. I feel like we're going to be here for a while, so get a Diet Coke and let's get ready to rumble, because we've got so much to talk about. I have literally pages and pages and pages and pages of notes to go through. And like, I'm even just looking at the qualifying starting grid and finishing positions, and I'm like, there's a lot to say about most of these. And like, sometimes when we have these like big moments in races, I'm like, we can fire through so many people because there was just nothing that really happened with them. But actually, for the majority of these, we've got a lot to talk about. When I say Brazil had it all, Brazil had it all. An aborted start, a rolling start, pit lane start, wet race, safety car, virtual safety car, red flags, do not starts, do not finishes, disqualified, start infringements, time penalties, unexpected drivers leading the Grand Prix, a Max Verstappen masterclass, team orders, and unexpected podium sitters, just to name a few. So let's dive right in with Oliver Bearman, who qualified 17th, started 15th, finished 12th. Now, Oliver Bearman was replacing Kevin Magnussen for the entire weekend. It was originally only scheduled that he would do FP1, or the only free practice session there was, and the sprint qualifying, and then Kevin would come back in for the sprint, the qualifying, and the Grand Prix. Kevin was then pulled out the full race weekend. He just really wasn't feeling well, so Oliver Bearman took over for the entirety of the weekend. Now, I've seen online some quite bizarre comments towards Oliver Bearman saying he shouldn't be getting a seat next year, he's not ready, all these negative nonsense. And let's all just calm down for a minute. This is the man's first wet race. He was called up at the very last minute. It's a sprint weekend, and there is so much going on. Like, so much happening throughout this weekend. From it being a sprint weekend, all the red flags in qualifying, and then the race just being pure chaos from start to finish. So, listen, do I agree that his inexperience was showing on track this weekend? 100% I do. 100% I do. But it's nothing negative. It's only going to help building up into this being a more rounded driver and prepare him even more for next year. We would be saying the exact same thing next year when we inevitably get a wet race and he's not performing how we all expect him to perform. He's just not used to it. And I have to say that for his first weather-affected race to be finishing P12, I would say is a mighty achievement for him. A mighty achievement, because that was probably one of the most difficult races for your first wet weather race. Yes, he was off the track quite a few times. Who wasn't off the track? Everyone was off the track. I don't think there's a single driver, maybe apart from Max Verstappen, who didn't at some point leave the track. I think he did a very good job for his first race, and I tell you what, he's come out of this weekend with a 10-second time penalty and 2 penalty points. So he's an F1 driver now. He had a little bit of a collision with Colapinto, and he was just flat out given a 10-second, he was seen at fault, flat out given a 10-second penalty and 2 penalty points. It is when you look at the steward's official document, it says that this is the standard penalty that we give out for this type of incident. There we are. Oliver Bearman, 10-second penalty and 2 penalty points. So with a 10-second penalty also to be finishing 12th in that race, well done, mate, actually, to be honest with you, well done. I'm excited to see what he can do next year. And I think everyone with the negative comments on Oliver Bearman, enough, just stop it, shut up. Because I'd like to see you do better. All right? So zip it. I feel like we could say that for a lot of the drivers this time round. Just, I'd like to see you do better. So yeah, not a great weekend for Oliver Bearman, but it'll only just make him a better driver. All right, moving on to his teammate Nico Hulkenberg, who qualified 19th, started the race 18th, and was disqualified. Hulkenberg got shown a black flag. He got shown a black flag, which we've not had since 2007. 2007 was the last time we had a black flag. The Canadian Grand Prix in 2007 was the last time a driver was shown a black flag. At that Grand Prix, 2 drivers were disqualified. It was Felipe Massa and Giancarlo Fisichella, who exited the pit lane when the red light was still on. This time, slightly different. So Hulkenberg went off into in fact, no, I don't even think he was in the gravel. I just think he went off the track. He just spun off the track. And we got a VSC. Everybody slows down, chills out. And the VSC just kind of went away. And I was like, they've obviously managed to get Hulkenberg into like a runoff, like into an exit lane or something like that. No. He managed to get back running again. And I was like, he's just managed to get the car going. No, he received some external outside assistance. The marshals just seemed so excited. They obviously just really wanted Hulkenberg to race that they got him going again. They basically got him back onto the track and got him back running again. We then got a red flag not that long after Hulkenberg had sort of spun off the track and come back on. And I had kind of thought nothing of it. And whilst they were in the pits, waiting for the green light to start racing again, Ted was sort of down by the Haas boys and had said that Hulkenberg was just chilling, speaking to Ayo Komatsu and a couple of others. They all had their radios and everything off, and they were chatting, and the race control started showing Hulkenberg a black flag, and none of them knew. None of them knew. And Ted was stood beside them being like, I know, like, I'm just hearing he's been showing a black flag. It's just coming up. And these guys are completely oblivious. Completely oblivious. So yeah, Hulkenberg's race ended prematurely. He was disqualified from the session instantly. as I said, I think he got running again, and it was a few laps. We got a red flag, and he was disqualified. It is a slam dunk disqualification. You are not allowed to receive any outside assistance to get moving again. And if you're out, you're out. And he didn't manage to get himself back onto the track. He received help, so he was disqualified. That's that. Nico Hulkenberg, disqualification. I can't believe it's been, how many years is that? So what, 2007? 17 years. 17 years since a driver has been shown a black flag. And Brazil 2024, the chaotic race, it happened. Am I surprised? No, I'd actually be more surprised if we didn't get a black flag. So yeah, Hulkenberg got disqualified, and we got our first black flag in 17 years. He'll go down in the history books. He may not ever stand atop a podium, but he did get a black flag. All right, next up is Zhou Guanyu, who qualified 20th, started 19th, finished 15th. Do not get it confused, my friends. Zhou Guanyu finishing 15th is not a good finish. He still finished last. And I have to, I sit and I think, and I look back, and I think, do you know what? If there was ever a time for any of the Sauber drivers, any of the two, to get points, it was that race just there. That was their time. That was their time. Especially Bottas, who finished actually quite close to the points. We'll come on to him in a second, but that was their time. If they can't score points in that, there's no hope in hell that they're going to score points over the next, 3 races? He started 19th because he got bumped up a place because Carlos Sainz had to start from the pit lane, and he was there, I suppose. He went out, he finished the race. That is a... Do you know what? I would say anyone finishing that race is a well done. I feel like it's just Zhou Guanyu things, isn't it? Honestly, I've said it before, but Sauber could actually just not run him. Could just not run him. Like, is there any actual... He's not doing anything. He's not even in the fight. He's genuinely not even in the fight. He's not making moves. He's not doing anything. It's so boring. I've given up even trying to look at the timing tower to see where he is, because it's just kills me. His teammate, Valtteri Bottas, qualified 11th, finished 13th. This is when I say this could have been Valtteri Bottas's chance. I also think in the qualifying session, who was it that crashed there? Stroll. Had Stroll not crashed towards the end of Q2, I actually think Valtteri Bottas could have made it into Q3. I genuinely think he could. I actually think that this weekend was a perfect weekend for Sauber to score anything. Like, even just 1 point. And they could finish the season having not scored points. Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually can't believe we're going to get to the end of the season and they're most likely have no points. It's genuinely baffling to me. And listen, I understand a lot of it is the car. I do understand that. But if any of those two drivers are actually given a seat next year, it will baffle me. Maybe not Bottas, because we know Bottas is a good driver, but I feel like he's just there for vibes at the moment. I genuinely feel like he's just there for vibes. And if they actually give him or Zhou Guanyu a seat next year, I will be so surprised. There is the rumours that they're obviously, they've offered Gabriel Bortoleto the contract for the second seat at Sauber next year. And apparently it's been signed. They're just going to announce it very, very soon. But if that is actually not the case and like one of those two get it, I'll be so shocked. I'll be so shocked because it's not even as if... In fact, I will say, Bottas seems as if he's trying. He's getting into Q2. He's finished close to the points, but then he's also just 2 positions ahead of his teammate, and 5 drivers didn't finish the race. So it is what it is. I hope, and there's just no hope in hell for next year either, because that car is just not going to be any better, because Audi aren't coming in till 26. The car next year is just going to be some iteration of the car this year. There's not going to be huge changes to it, because they're going to have to divert resources to... The focus needs to be to 26 and the reg change. So yeah, not great for them, and it'll probably be another year of just shite. But we won't be watching Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas in P19 and P20. We'll be watching Nico Hulkenberg and someone else. Most likely Bortoleto. All right, next up is Liam Lawson, who qualified 5th, finished 9th. I think this is another time where you can see maybe just a little bit of inexperience in these kind of conditions, in these kind of races. He did have a couple of offs. He went off at one point. Can't remember what turn it was, but he went off at one point and just lost 3 places. To finish in the points is an amazing achievement for him. I think all of his 5 races last year were in dry conditions, and his 2 races so far this year have also been in pretty reasonable conditions, Austin and Mexico. So, do you know what? For his 3rd race back, having not really driven for a year, to finish in the points positions is a fantastic result for Liam Lawson. He is very lucky that the starting grid infringement, he was no further action. Obviously, we'll come on and talk a little bit more about that when we get to Lando Norris and George Russell, but he was just kind of following what people in front of him were doing, and he got no further action on that. Thank God for him. He did get bumped into by Oscar Piastri. Thankfully, it didn't cause any damage, I don't think, to him. Another little battle with Perez. He believed Perez crashed into him, and I'd say crashed, but it's not like, you know, he's just banged into him. It's like a bump. And he's constantly getting told right now. It's almost like he's got it in for Perez, because in the sprint or the quali, I think it was maybe the qualifying, he was coming round turn 1, that's sort of round the Senna S, and there was a Red Bull, and he came over the radio, and I can't remember what exactly happened, but he was like, "Is that Perez?" And his like race engineer has to be like, "Just forget about it. Don't let it bother you. Just leave it. Stop getting yourself worked up about these things." So I get they're high pressure situations, but it feels like it's just one of these, it feels like it's going to be one of these things where, do you know when somebody just annoys you? Like somebody just annoys you, and you've had a bit of a moment with them, and then every single little thing they do just really gets to you. That's what I feel like is happening with Lawson and Perez. Everything that Perez does is just winding Lawson at, and it could be nothing, but Lawson is, it's just getting to Lawson, and he's gonna need to, you know, control that, because he could very well still be racing against Perez next year. Yeah, that's all there is really to say about Liam Lawson. All right, moving on to his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who qualified 3rd, finished 7th. Again, fantastic result for Yuki to be finishing in the points. It is a shame he couldn't finish a little bit further up after such an incredible qualifying, but obviously it just wasn't written in the stars for him, unfortunately. He pitted under the VSC, and obviously the red flag happened, which meant that those who hadn't pitted in front of him, which were Gasly, Verstappen, Ocon, benefited massively. He was one of the ones that maybe would have lost out, because not as much of a loss as your George Russells and Lando Norris's, but they, unfortunately for him, it just didn't work out. Another one who's very lucky that the starting grid infringement was a no further action, because he could have actually been fined. He could have, I actually reckon it could have been a fine, because I actually think that those that did get fined probably deserve something a little bit more. Again, come on to that in a minute, but not a bad wee weekend for Yuki Tsunoda. Great for VCarb to get double points. It is only helping them the fact that their little battle with Haas. Now, obviously, in their battle with Haas, they have managed to close the gap. Haas obviously having a disqualification and Bearman finishing outside the points. RB managed to get both drivers into the points, so there is 2 points between RB and Haas. So well done to those boys. for securing double points for the team. Next up is Franco Colapinto, who qualified 18th, started 16th, did not finish. I feel really bad for Colapinto because, again, just another driver where an inexperience in these kind of conditions showed. And unlike your Oliver Bearmans, who still managed to finish the race, finished just outside the points, yes, managed to get a penalty, but still finished the race, it didn't end so lovely for Colapinto. I think he was just running all right, and they had just come out of the VSC for Hulkenberg. Yes, they just come out of the VSC for Hulkenberg spinning off, and he was coming up the back few corners towards the pit straight and just lost control of the car. And a really nasty crash for Colapinto. A really nasty crash. And what a shit weekend for Williams, to be honest with you, because that's a crash for Colapinto in qualifying, a crash for Albon in qualifying. We'll obviously come on to Albon in a second, but he didn't even start the race. And then another crash for Colapinto in the race. And that's huge for Williams. Huge for Williams. And I would just hate to be a Williams mechanic this weekend. And see, when he crashed, it shot to a mechanic in the garage at Williams, and he was just like they just looked so defeated, and I felt so bad for them. I felt so bad for them. It caused a red flag. It's just not great for Williams that are struggling. They are 9th in the Constructors. They have 17 points to them. It was a non-point scoring weekend, I believe, for them. And again, not great in their fight with Alpine, who leapfrogged them. They leapfrogged them, RB and Haas. Let's move on quickly to his teammate, Alex Albon, who qualified 7th, did not start. Now, Albon did make it through to Q3. He did qualify 7th, even though he had a pretty nasty crash during Q3 in qualifying. And I said in my post-quali reaction that I didn't think both Williams would start the race, and I was right. However, I actually thought that because of Albon's starting position and maybe because of his experience within Formula One, and he's driven in these kind of conditions, etc. before, that if they had to choose one car, they would just fix one of the cars and give it to Albon. Unfortunately for Albon, that didn't happen. The damage on his car was far too extensive, and actually it shows that Williams have way more faith in Colapinto than they ever had in Sargent, because if Logan Sargent had still been on that team, Logan Sargent's car would have been given to Alex Albon. 100%, you cannot tell me otherwise. It would have been a repeat of Australia. However, they obviously have faith that Colapinto can go and score them points. I mean, he's done it nearly every weekend now. And it's just so unfortunate that Williams' weekend ended that way. So yeah, Albon didn't actually start the race. The damage on his car was too much. That they just didn't start. They withdrew him from the race about half an hour, I think, before race start. That's it, unfortunately, for Alex Albon. As I said, they have 17 points and they're 9th in the constructor standings now. So yeah, just a very, very unfortunate week for Williams. However, their championship rivals, Alpine! Oh my God, did I see this coming? No, I did not. So, Pierre Gasly qualified 15th, started 13th, finished 3rd, and Esteban Ocon, who qualified 4th and finished 2nd. Now, listen, fantastic weekend for Esteban Ocon, who qualified amazingly. The start of that race, he just held on to it beautifully, and he was running very lovely for quite a long time in 4th. And then the pit stop started coming in. So Yuki pitted, Lando pitted, Russell pitted, the 3 drivers in front of him all pitted. And just imagine being on a Sunday and you're not really as connected to, you like watching Formula One, but you're not so, it's not just so ingrained in you that you can't miss anything. Like, you probably don't really watch a practice session. You'll watch the quali, you'll watch the race, you'll catch the sprint. You're not really too bothered about sprint qualifying. Like, do you know what I mean? You're not following this traveling circuses every single move. You just like watching it on a Sunday, right? You've got your favorite team, you've got your favorite driver. You've got no idea that the race start and everything has been brought forward. You're just like, oh, do you know what? They've postponed qualifying. They'll do it in the morning. I'm not that bothered. This is really long explanation, but I'll watch it in the afternoon. I'll watch it in the afternoon just after my Sunday lunch. And you turn it on, and it is currently lap 33, and Esteban Ocon is leading the São Paulo Grand Prix. Imagine how shocked you would be. He held on to that for a long amount of time, and he was not willing to give that up at all. And he just played that perfectly. He must be so glad that he didn't pit before the red flag. He could have easily pitted during the VSC, but he decided not to. Him and Gasly would be very proud of that. Gasly just managing to work his way through the field to get himself where he did. He was sitting behind Verstappen, so there was Ocon, Verstappen, Gasly. The red flag happened because Colapinto crashed. They all got a free pit stop, which massively benefited. That red flag hugely benefited Ocon, Verstappen and Gasly. Hugely, because it gave them a free pit stop. It put them on fresher tyres. Everyone else has pitted prior to that under the VSC, but they're now further back, more than what they would have been if they had changed their tyres under the red flag. They have a rolling start. Esteban is brilliant at managing to keep Max behind him during that whole process. We then get another safety car, and again, he manages to, you can see him kind of playing the game, but Max is having none of it this time, and he does just lose out to Max. And him and Gasly just managed to hold on to second and third. Alpine getting a 2-3, it's one of those storylines that I just love in Formula One. The emotion behind the Alpine, like the emotion of the Alpine team yesterday was just beautiful. You can tell how much that meant to them. They have waited so long, and Esteban doing it on his final year with the team before he moves to Haas. Gasly, who's, how long has it been since Gasly's been on a podium? Can't remember. But just beautiful. It just meant so much to Alpine. It really did. And I'm so happy for them. I'm so happy for them. Because there was not a dry eye anywhere. Not a dry eye. The radio messages got me. Them on the podium got me. The Alpine boys celebrating it just all got me. It's just one of those heartwarming moments in F1 that do just make it the greatest sport on the planet. It is genuinely, you don't get storylines like this in any other sport. And as I said, a fantastic result for Alpine, who went into the weekend with 14 points and were 9th in the Constructors, to leaving Brazil with 47 points and 6th in the Constructors. They leapfrogged Williams, RB and Haas, and in doing so managed to get a difference of about 30 million euros, about 30 million in prize money. Is that not just insane? Now listen, do I think that they will manage to hold on to that? I don't know. There's only 5 points between themselves and RB. Haas is in the middle, 3 points behind them. That is now, going into these last 3 races, that is one of the fights I am watching so closely, is the RB, Haas and Alpine and where they come out. It is a fight for 6th in the constructor standings. Williams is out of it now. They will finish 9th. Sauber, they're not getting any points, let's be honest with you. And I can't imagine they'll really catch Aston Martin. I think it's a fight for 6th, a fight for P1 in the constructors between Ferrari and McLaren, and the fight for 6th between Alpine, Haas and RB. And that is a fight I am excited to watch. All right, next up is Lance Stroll, who qualified 10th, did not start. So the formation lap got underway, and as they were going around the track, listen, I get it, it is terrible conditions. He lost the rear of the car and he spun off. He was able to get the car going again. So tell me why Lance Stroll just decided to drive into the gravel. He beached himself on purpose. Like, I'm not taking a, oh, he thought he could get through. Why is he driving through the gravel? There was plenty of slip road areas, runoff bits that he could easily have gotten the car back on the track. Why did he decide to drive through the gravel? What is going on? Did he just not want to race this weekend? Did he just look at the weather and think, fuck that? Was he tired? Like, everyone was tired. It was a 7:30 start. Absolutely baffles me that he did that. Like, I just don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand why he drove into the gravel and beached himself. It's baffling to me. Not much else to say about him. Fernando Alonso, who qualified 9th, finished 14th. Alonso's just another one that didn't have a great weekend this weekend. He did at one point have a spin and like lost a load of places and rejoined last. And he was like, what I will say, he was about 20 seconds behind Zhou Guanyu and in a few laps had managed to make that back up. So just incredible driving from Fernando Alonso. However, the pain that man was in is not okay. Towards the end of the race, he came over the radio and had said, you know, I'm going to finish this race because of all the mechanics that have worked so hard to get the car race ready after his crash in qualifying that allowed him to race. And there was obviously Stroll who didn't even start. So he wanted to finish the race for the mechanics, and that's like a true F1 driver. However, on the flip side of that, he was like, my back is he's like, I'm in agony. I'm so sore. He's like, the bouncing on this track is not normal. Now, the track had just been resurfaced, and I think whoever the track management are, they need to speak to the company that resurfaced that track. One, because it costs so much money, and they obviously did not get their money's worth. Now, listen, it's built on a marsh, so I understand that there is bumps throughout the track. That's natural. It's just the land that the track is built on. That being said, you could see when you rode on board with any of the drivers, their heads were just like this. Constant. Like, the bumping was crazy. Everybody complained about it. Hamilton, all the drivers, Alonso, it hurt him so much. And there needs to be something done about that track. They need to go and speak to whoever did it, because that's not normal. And I don't know if anybody's seen the video of him trying to get out of the car after the Grand Prix. And he pulls in, and there's a few people stood around them. I can't remember whether they're just like marshals or whether they are Alpine, not Alpine, or whether they're Aston Martin pit crew. But he like gets up and he's just stood. He just can't move. He just can't move. And it's not fair to put the drivers through that. It's already a very difficult race. So if I was the track management, I'd be having some kind of words with whoever did that. But not a great result for him. Finished second last. As I said, a great little drive after he spun off to be able to claw back 20 seconds in just a few laps and get an overtake done on Zhou Guanyu, but just not a weekend that Fernando Alonso will want to remember. All right, next up is Oscar Piastri, who qualified 8th, finished 8th. Again, I have to say, Oscar Piastri is just a great team player. In that sprint race 2 days ago on Saturday, that was Oscar Piastri's win. And everybody says it, Lando said it, the commentators say it, everybody is in agreement that that was Oscar Piastri's sprint race to win. And he played the team game and let Lando through so that Lando could get the win and, you know, in the all-important points for the championship. Again, this time round, he was told to let Lando through. And he did. I will say, as much as a great team player that Oscar Piastri is, the letting Lando through and playing that game will only last so long before it wears thin and Oscar goes, no, I'm actually the faster driver, I'm going. I don't think he was miles ahead of Lando in the race, in the actual Grand Prix. The sprint is a different thing, but in the Grand Prix, I don't think he was huge ahead. He had a 10-second penalty. He had gotten for a collision with Lawson. He tried to go down the inside of turn 1, but by the time they'd sort of reached the corner, he hadn't actually gained, he wasn't in the correct place to be given the room on the inside. He should have actually backed off going into that corner. Didn't, and caused a collision with with Lawson. So got 2 penalty points on his licence and a 10-second penalty. So yeah, not great. Lovely that he managed to finish and get some points. A couple more points in the bag for McLaren. But an amazing team player that Piastri is. And there will just become a point though where that wears off and he says, I'm not giving this up. Like, I am actually the faster driver and I'm not going to sacrifice my win or my positions for my teammate that isn't going to necessarily perform any better. So yeah, that's it from Oscar Piastri. Now Lando Norris, who qualified first, finished 6th. What I will say is I have seen some quite unnecessary hate towards Lando after that Grand Prix. Now, I'll come on to that just shortly, but I beg people just to actually listen to what Lando was saying and what the questions posed to him were when you clip up his reactions and his replies in these interviews, because some of y'all are just not listening. So, first of all is the starting incident. Now, the formation lap was underway, and obviously, as I said, Lance Stroll spun out and then beached himself. So they all lined up on the grid, and it was an aborted start. Now, it was an aborted start. The lights were orange. That means stay where you are. Do not move. Do not do anything. Wait until race control give you some kind of instruction. Wait until race control tell your team what you are to do. Because for the aborted start and those orange lights, the teams can come back onto the grid and put tyre blankets on and do whatever they need to do to keep the car in a stable condition and cool the car down so it doesn't overheat just sat there on the grid. Because they've got no idea how long it could take to get Stroll's car off. Not a clue. So there is work that can be done to maintain the car in a good shape, shall we say, so that when they are ready to go again, they can do another formation lap and then start the Grand Prix. So there was an aborted start, and I don't know why, but Lando just decided to go on another formation lap. And off he went. Now, in the official documents, this is what the stewards have said. Formula One race director initiated the aborted start procedure, indicating that the drivers should not leave the grid. This message was necessary as there was a car off the track at turn 4, Lance Stroll, that needed to be recovered. Now, although the signal was appropriately given, the light panel illuminated as prescribed and the teams notified by the messaging system, the driver, Lando Norris, left the grid and proceeded on a lap that he assumed to be an extra formation lap. As the driver was on the front row of the grid, this triggered following drivers to take similar action. At some point, the race director, realising that for practical reasons all cars would now need to do an extra formation lap, gave instruction to the teams for all cars to proceed and return to the grid to follow the correct aborted start procedure. It is in the opinion of the stewards that the driver, Norris, precipitated the action of the drivers behind him. So basically what they're saying, he, along with George Russell, because he was the other one on the front of the grid, should never have left the grid, and they decided and assumed, that they assumed that there was going to be another formation lap, so they just went. Now, the drivers behind that followed that also were investigated were Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson. As I said, they had no further action. Now, if you watched the Grand Prix in the starting procedure, there's actually a clip of Max sat in his grid box and he radios and he says, we're not supposed to be going. Like, what's going on here? And GP comes back over the radio and says, yep, there is so many rules being broken right now. We have gone to race control about this. And basically what's happened is race control have then realised what's happened. They've then said all the drivers need to go and do an extra formation lap, line up on the grid and get the aborted start procedure done in a proper way. Norris just took it upon himself to do whatever he fancied doing. He did get a €5,000 fine and a reprimand, which came about our time 11 o'clock. So a good few hours after the race had ended. And it made no difference to his finishing position. When we got to the racing, he lost out. George Russell Lando had the better off the line, but George had the better going into the corner, and he lost P1 in the first corner. It's just another unfortunate addition to Lando losing the lead within the first lap. That's happened so many times this year. And he just couldn't really get past Russell. Now, where his race really came undone, when the virtual safety car came out for Nico Hulkenberg spinning off, they pitted at a really bizarre time. I just don't really understand why they pitted when they pitted, but they pitted, they changed the tyres, and then a few laps later we got the red flag. So they were all but stuck, essentially, and it basically ruined their race. Now, on the restart, he had actually made it past Russell, but on the restart, he went wide into turn one and lost the position to Russell, ended up behind Piastri. As I said, he did get let through. He was then all over the back of Leclerc, but just couldn't make it past Leclerc and came home sixth. That's all there is really to say about Lando Norris, isn't there? One, I cannot believe that the starting grid incident was just a €5,000 fine and a reprimand. I think that's utter nonsense. And the reason I think it's utter nonsense is Charles Leclerc was fined €10,000, 5,000 of which have been postponed depending on whether he does it again in a certain amount of time, for swearing in the press conference. However, Lando Norris can literally do a starting procedure infringement, can just do another formation lap on an aborted start, leave the grid on an aborted start, and receives the same penalty, actually a lesser penalty, because it was a flat out $5,000 fine, not a 10 grand with a... I just think it's utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. This is why people don't take the FIA seriously, don't take the stewarding decision seriously, because they make such bizarre calls. I'm sorry, but Charles Leclerc swearing in a press conference makes no difference to my life. If anything, it probably gives me something funny to talk about in my F1 group chat and a lovely new meme to add to my memes folder. What it doesn't do is put anyone at risk. Do you know what Lando leaving the grid on an aborted start does? Put people at risk. It's a breaking of the rules. A serious breaking of the rules. Make it make sense. What I was talking about earlier on when I was saying I beg for you people to listen to what Lando was asking. When Lando said in his post-race interview, it's no talent, it's all about luck. He's not talking about Max Verstappen winning. He's talking about the luck that Max and Esteban and Gasly all got from being able to change their tyres under the safety car. He's talking about how unlucky both himself and Russell were for pitting when they pitted and not waiting until the safety car. But they didn't know there was going to be a safety car. So they're saying it's just they got lucky. He's not saying they don't have talent. He's saying they got lucky being able to change their tyres when they did. That him and George are unlucky. He said he believes that this was George Russell's win, but they both got unlucky because they pitted, lost the time under the VSC when they could have waited and maybe gotten the benefit, well, would have gotten the benefit under the red flag. But they didn't know there was going to be a red flag. He's not calling Max untalented. Jesus Christ, use your ears. Hello, use these, listen. Jesus goddamn Christ, I seen it clipped. It was all over TikTok, all over X, it was everywhere. Oh my God, he's saying Max isn't talented. He's not saying that. Jesus Christ, take your tinfoil hat off. Can't believe how many times I've had to say that this weekend. God almighty. Right, Carlos Sainz, qualified 14th, started from the pit lane, did not finish. Sainz very unfortunately crashed in the qualifying session, so he ended up having a pit lane start because he needed to take new elements outside of his pool over and above his pool, allocated pool, and had broke Parc Fermé to make the changes. So he was put to the pit lane. He, again, just wasn't having a great time out there, to be honest with you, and was really, really struggling. And unfortunately, crashed into the barriers, just lost the rear of the car and spun into the barriers. Now, he did get a reprimand for this because after he'd crashed and we were put under a safety car, he had taken the steering wheel off, and the marshals were coming to sort of move the car, and the team had said, oh, we actually think you might be able to get the car back to the pits. He put the steering wheel back on and tried to drive the car back to the pits. Didn't make it very far, to be honest with you, and was basically noted for dangerous driving and was given a reprimand for dangerous driving. Why are Ferrari making these decisions? Why are Ferrari telling them to do that? It's obviously dangerous driving. He's taking the steering wheel off the goddamn car. He's taking the steering wheel off. No. Don't tell him to drive back. So Ferrari making Ferrari decisions again. And just an unfortunate end to his race. Next up is Charles Leclerc, who qualified 6th, finished 5th. Again, really struggling this weekend. Charles Leclerc, the best that he could do was a P5. He was never going to get any further. They just didn't have the pace this weekend, to be honest with you. And it just wasn't their race, unfortunately. Mighty work being able to sort of keep Lando at bay, because after Lando had been let through by Piastri, he was all over the back of Leclerc, and Leclerc just managed to keep him at bay. But not much really to say. Probably the first time ever I don't really have much to say about Charles Leclerc. Usually he's the one I spend all my time talking about just because I love him so much. But not much to say about Charles Leclerc, unfortunately. Solid amount of points, to be honest. He is now thoroughly in a fight for P2 in the championship with Lando Norris. There's 24 points between him and between Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. So we are looking at a fight for P2 in the championship now. I think Lando needs to not focus on trying to beat Max in the championship. I think he needs to re-divert to beating Charles Leclerc, because I imagine that when we get to Vegas in 2 weeks, next week actually, next weekend, not the weekend coming, the weekend after, we will get Max Verstappen crowned the 2024 Drivers' World Champion. There is no way Lando's going to be able to close the gap to him now. Okay, next up is George Russell, who qualified 2nd, finished 4th. Again, for the starting procedure, he was also fined €5,000 and was given a reprimand for the stewards, because the exact same thing as Lando Norris. Because he was at the front, he was deemed to be the one that sort of started it, and the other drivers sort of followed suit. So he got fined for that. Now, during the aborted restart, after they'd all come back to the grid and the mechanics had come out to sort of make sure the cars were all right, both himself and Lewis Hamilton got noted for the teams changing the tyre pressure on the car, which again is just a break of the rules. Now, it's not in the actual written rule book, but it is a technical directive that you cannot do that. Now, George Russell had said that he was really hoping that there wouldn't be much of an issue because they didn't actually manage to get the tyre pressure changed to the correct one. Bernie Collins from Sky was like, no, that'll probably be a pretty severe penalty handed to them because it's just a complete no. I thought it would be a disqualification, but Mercedes got a €10,000 fine, 5,000 for Hamilton, 5,000 for Russell. And again, I say Charles Leclerc was fined €10,000 for swearing, yet Mercedes is getting a 5,000 fine per driver for a change in tyre pressure when the wheels are still attached. It doesn't make any sense. Russell, a phenomenal get off the line for Russell managing to get P1. He was holding it beautifully. Again, same as Lando Norris, pitted at the wrong time under the virtual safety car, lost out during the red flag. And he was never going to be able to get any higher than P4. But P4, very respectable and very decent result in a race like this. Crazy from start to finish. So he should be very happy with himself, to be completely honest with you. And then Lewis Hamilton, who qualified 16th, started 14th, finished 10th. Again, the team fined €5,000 for the change in tyre pressure. Hamilton was just not having a good time at all. Really not having a good time, really struggled out there, just couldn't pull it together. It was there, but wasn't really doing much. I bet Hamilton is just over this. I think he hates that car. Hates that car. I think he's so excited for this year to end. I think he can't wait till Christmas. Cannot wait till Christmas. I'm pretty sure he said I can't wait till Christmas. I think he just wants it over with now. Wants this year over with. He's like, all I'm focused on now is just getting some points for the team. I'm out of the championship. I don't care where I finish in the driver's standings anymore. I just want this over with, and with the next 3 races, I'll try and get some points for the team. He does not care. Finally, the Red Bull boys and Sergio Perez, who qualified 13th, started 12th, finished 11th. Perez, just another one that wasn't having a great time. He spun pretty much off the line round turn 1. Managed to rejoin, but had obviously lost a couple of positions. He was obviously in that little spat with Lawson. Lawson believe he crashed into him. I didn't see it myself, to be honest with you, but Perez was just kind of not really there. Like, I don't really remember seeing a lot of Perez on. I remember seeing a little battle between Lawson and Hamilton and Perez, and both Hamilton and Lawson managing to make it past Perez, so I'm losing 2 positions in once, and seeing him spin off at the start, but I didn't really see Perez, so oh well. Moving on to his teammate. Mental that his teammate, who qualified 12th, started 17th and finished 1st. Now, just let me clarify, he started 17th because he had a 5-place grid penalty because he'd taken new engine components. And can I just say, that was probably one of the greatest drives of all time. Genuinely one of the greatest drives of all time. That man kept it cool, calm, collected. He went off the line. I think this is better than Brazil 2016. Genuinely think it's better than Brazil 2016. He started off the line 17th. He managed to make up a couple of positions and then was just picking drivers off. He just biding his time, making phenomenal moves, picking drivers off as he went, slowly getting up. Benefited, as I said, from a red flag, being able to get a free tyre change. Waited, got the restart done, couldn't really get past Esteban Ocon, but then bided his time. It was another safety car restart. He got out and he managed to get Ocon into turn 1. And once he was in front of Ocon, he sailed. He just absolutely flew. He did 17 fastest laps in a row. 17. Fastest lap, fastest lap, fastest lap, fastest lap. Couldn't stop him. You could not stop him. It was absolutely incredible watching that man drive. This is what I mean, he is one of the greats. And it is a shame that when you look at things like Mexico and like Austin, people are like, he's a terrible driver. He can't do wheel-to-wheel combat. He needs to be in front and winning by a country mile, otherwise he's a terrible driver. Blah, blah, blah. Look at this. Look at what's just happened. Look at what's just happened. Go and watch Brazil, because that is... I said we would get a Max Verstappen masterclass, that it would be clean racing, but it would be bold moves. And what happened? He started 17th, he finished 1st. That is a Max Verstappen masterclass. That is a Max Verstappen masterclass. One of the best drives I have ever seen. There is no way you can watch Brazil and say Max is not a good driver. Everyone praised him for that. Everyone. Norris praised him. Hamilton praised him. They all said that was such a well-deserved win because it was incredible. Bloody brilliant. Brilliant win. Absolutely incredible. Going from 17th to 1st. Are you all right? In those conditions. And what's wild is I think it was Charles Leclerc. I think it was Charles Leclerc who I really enjoy him talking in the press conference and people clipping it and being like, that is, I'm going to stand beside my cancelled man. I'm standing with him. But I think a lot of the drivers have said that they like woke up and seen the weather and were like, this is a Max Verstappen race. This is going to be a Max Verstappen race. He's just a beast in the rain. Absolute beast. So well done to Max Verstappen on a sensational win. Absolutely sensational. One of the best drives I've ever seen. Probably in the top 5 drives of all time. In all seriousness, top 5 drives of all time. And I will say that within the next... So we're in Vegas, not this weekend, next weekend. We will get Max Verstappen crowned world champion. Max Verstappen crowned the world champion. I think it's something like Lando needs to... Something about 2 points. Does Lando need to beat him by 2 points? or not lose by more than 2 points to stay in contention for the championship. Either way, I think Max Verstappen's getting crowned champion next time out in Vegas. 4-time world champion. That was a champion's drive. That was a champion's drive from Max Verstappen. And if you don't think that, then go and argue with the wall, because I'm just not interested in hearing it. One of the best drives. I'm telling you, it's championship over. It's championship. Max Verstappen is, in my eyes, Max Verstappen is a 4-time world champion. Done. As I said, Lando Norris needs to refocus on his battle with Charles Leclerc for P2 in the championship, not his battle with Max for P1. And can I just say, listen, this is no hate towards Lando Norris. Lando Norris has just gotten his first win this year and is then in a title fight. Like, that is huge. To get your first win and be in a title fight all in the same year, massive, massive. Well done to Lando Norris for that. The gap is now 62 points. 62 points. I just don't see Lando being able to recover from that. I genuinely don't. So yeah, that is everything from us. From an absolutely chaotic São Paulo Grand Prix. From start to finish. Drama at every turn, at every corner. Let's go through the list again, shall we? Aborted start, rolling starts, pit lane starts, wet races, safety cars, VSCs, red flags, DNSs, DNFs, disqualifications, start infringements, time penalties, unexpected driver leading, Esteban Ocon, Max Masterclass P17 to P1, team orders down at McLaren, and an unexpected podium sitter, the 2 Alpine drivers. Brazil had it all. It had it all. That will go down as a race that I will rewatch. That is going straight into the bank of when I've got an afternoon where I'm not really doing much and I'm like, do you know what? I just need something. I need to feel something. I'll put that on. Yeah, I'll watch another 4 hours of that race. Damn right I will. But yes, that is everything from us. I'm going to go because this is a very long podcast episode. Thank God we've got a break. Thank God we've got 1 week off, because that was exhausting, to be honest. And I think the drivers need a break. The mechanics definitely need a break. I think the whole F1 travelling circus just needs a breather. And thankfully that's what this week will be. We will be back very soon with our predictions for Las Vegas. That is on my thing to watch this week, is the Vegas Grand Prix from last year, because I actually missed it as I was in Japan. So I'm going to watch that. Again, I did watch it after, I managed to watch it after the season had ended, because the season, Abu Dhabi, was when I was flying home from Japan. So I watched that on the plane, but I'm going to watch that this week. A little bit of the Vegas GP. But that is everything from us. If you do like what we put out, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you are listening, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, please follow along, hit that like button. And if you would be so kind, follow us on social media at Parc Fermé Parlay on TikTok, Threads, and Instagram. So thank you very much for listening. I will see you very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Love ya. Bye.